This week, we remember Senator Dianne Feinstein at the same time that the Republican presidential candidates all visit California.
Would you like to run against Governor Newsom?
I'd love it.
Welcome back to The Issue Is. We're in the Republican spin room talking to the candidates and the Democratic governor of California.
There's a lot of people who are going to say, what are you doing here?
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
She understood the importance of working together to find common ground and to get things done.
Welcome to a special edition of The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson reporting this week from the California Republican Convention in Anaheim. We came here to report on President Trump speaking here, and we will have more on that in a moment. But we begin with the loss of a giant in California politics. Senator Dianne Feinstein, the longest-serving female senator ever, dying this week at the age of 90. To talk about it now, we are joined by Joe Garafoli, who knew her as well as anybody in the California press corps, columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle. Joe, thanks for being here with us. How would you describe Dianne Feinstein's legacy?
First of all, it is over 50 years. She was first elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in the late 60s. She was actually thinking of leaving politics after a couple of failed mayoral runs. And then the mayor of San Francisco was assassinated. Harvey Milk was assassinated. She was thrust into that role. She seized it. She stabilized San Francisco at a very tumultuous time. That was the Jonestown massacre and such. And she never looked back after that.
Can you describe your relationship with her and what your dynamic was like?
Well, I did possibly one of the only, and I believe the last podcast interview with her a few years ago, and I said, let's talk about just your life up until you were elected to the Senate, first female senator in California history, along with Barbara Boxer in 1992. Her life is very amazing. It's been shaped by tragedy. She lost one husband who died. The assassinations. She had a bomb planted outside her home when she was mayor of San Francisco. There were threats on her life, and she survived and persevered. And was often she was the first female of many aspects of her life. She was even kicked out of a club, or threatened to kicked out of a private club in San Francisco. And she said, go ahead, try and kick me out. I'm going to call the cops. And they let her stay. And so her life has been one of always standing up. And she's also pushed back against her party in many ways, too.
Can you describe what she was like personally to deal with?
Well, very prepared. We see her in the last couple of years. That was not the Dianne Feinstein of the previous 5 decades. She was super prepared. She would come into editorial board meetings at the Chronicle with the binders of material. She knew everything in that binder. She had 3 or 4 aides with her, and she said, that's on page 41, flip to that. She was a master of the details. And she knew policy well. And she was not afraid to pick up the phone and give an ear blistering to any politician in San Francisco about if she wasn't happy with something, whether it be Newsom when he was mayor or whomever. Yeah. And so she was very on top of things.
Yeah, he's talked about Governor Newsom about being on the other end of that in the past. So now Governor Newsom is in the position of having to pick her replacement, something he said he doesn't want to do. He said it's going to be a black woman. Any sense on who that could be?
There's a lot of people who said they don't want to do it, and starting with Secretary of State Shirley Weber, Holly Mitchell, we've reached out to her. She said she's not interested. It's going to be a very difficult decision. Now, and of course, the political pressure is Barbara Lee, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, is running for Senate. Said she's ticked off that he wants to appoint someone on an interim basis. He said he doesn't want to put his thumb on the scale there. It's a very difficult decision for Newsom, and one that could hurt him later. He, as we know, he perhaps has national political aspirations. If he ticks off black women, some of the most loyal voters in the Democratic Party, his national aspirations won't go too far.
Joe Garafoli, thanks so much for joining us on this very, very strange day in California politics. Despite the loss of Feinstein, the convention here continues on with Donald Trump supporters out in force. Donald Trump makes a visit to Carvel Ice Cream in Westwood, and his fans are delighted by the sweet surprise. The crowd here going crazy for the former president. Mr. President, what's your message to the people of California?
It's in a lot of trouble, California. They're doing very badly, and we'll turn it all around. The whole country's going to be turned around.
Would you like to run against Governor Newsom?
I'd love it. I think, look, what could be better than Biden, but I'd love Newsom. If that works out, I don't think it's going to. I think Biden's trying to limp along.
Any thoughts on Senator Feinstein?
Well, it's too bad. She was a nice woman. I knew her actually fairly well. We got a lot different persuasion, but we knew her fairly well, Dianne Feinstein. So we wish her family the best.
We're the only local TV station invited to ride in the motorcade from the GOP convention in Anaheim. On stage, a hero's welcome for Trump.
No way we lose this state in a real election. If this was a real election, there's no way.
You guys look like the future of the Republican Party right here.
South Carolina Senator Tim Scott talking up his presidential campaign in the afternoon. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis speaking to the evening crowd.
We're scheduled to have a little tussle with your governor on Fox News on November 30th.
But a big chunk of this convention clearly loyal to Trump. Why is it so important for you to see Donald Trump in person?
For me, it's like one in a lifetime.
I love the way he stands up for what he believes in, and he's fighting for us.
On Wednesday, the Reagan Library in Simi Valley hosting its 5th presidential debate in 4 cycles. Melissa Giller is a library spokesperson.
What's the best part of all of this?
Being a part of history.
This historic night, often testy.
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
No.
North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum still grateful for the exposure.
We have the lowest name recognition of anybody on the stage. We've got among the highest favorables. So we think that our future is bright right now.
Former candidate for Arizona Governor Carrie Lake is a Trump supporter.
I'm actually embarrassed for the people who are on that stage tonight. They know they don't have a snowball's chance in Phoenix of winning. And this is a vanity project.
Post-debate polls show the race largely unchanged, with Trump way ahead. Steve Hilton is a conservative commentator. Trump remains the front runner.
By far. The big question is, how long can these people keep the money coming in? Because the truth about politics, Alex, as you know, is that these people don't drop out of the race because they're not popular or because of the polls or anything else. They drop out when they run out of money.
California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom may have gotten more attention than anyone else in the Republican debate spin room. Up next, our in-depth sit-down.
The biggest takeaway tonight?
There was no takeaway of merit.
Governor Gavin Newsom attracted hundreds of reporters inside the spin room of the Republican debate. Right before this moment, he sat down with us in Westlake Village.
Governor Gavin Newsom, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Great to be with you.
All right, so we were in the spin room together back in 2019 with the Democrats. Now you're with the Republicans. How's that feel?
Well, I'm hardly favored nation status, I think, at the Reagan Library in the Republican debate. So I think it's a difference between daylight and darkness.
Okay. What is your main message? Because a lot of people are going to say, what are you doing here?
Making a case for the Biden administration, making a case for what I think has been a masterclass the last 2.5 years, making a case for an economic policy that's the most consequential since FDR, making the case for investments in infrastructure after years and years of infrastructure week becoming a punchline, making a case for the fact that this guy, Joe Biden, took the economy that was at 14.7% unemployment down to 3.8% unemployment, 2/3 reduction in the inflation rate. Directionally, this country is doing extraordinarily well. I recognize everyone lives with unique circumstances, but as a macroeconomic reality, reality in this country is better than any other major democracy in the world.
You know, the Reagan Library is an impressive place. Obviously, it's a tribute to Ronald Reagan and his legacy. What do you think Ronald Reagan would think of this Republican Party?
I think he'd be offended and disgusted by it. I mean, remember, people have to go back. It's one of the it's a beautiful, beautiful speech. I say that as a Democrat. His last speech in the White House. It was a love letter to immigrants. He talked about the torch of Lady Liberty. Can you imagine those words coming from any of the candidates who'll be assembled tonight? This is a guy in 1989, Ronald Reagan, that said these weapons of war don't belong on the streets, was opposed to those weapons of war. Ronald Reagan himself was not in denial about climate change. He saw it with his own eyes with the smog down here in LA and started the California Air Resources Board. I mean, these guys are in the Reagan Library, but they have nothing to do with his legacy.
You study conservative thought, probably as much, if not more, than any other Democrat. You watch conservative media every day.
Yeah, mostly.
So
forgive me, Father.
You think deeply about what conservatives are thinking about. Why do you think Donald Trump is up as much as he is? What is he connecting with the Republican Party?
Well, I mean, he's up against the B team. I mean, he's up against the JV team. He's up against the XFL. He's up against those that are auditioning for vice president. But he's not up, I think, with the majority of American people, regardless of these situational polls. He was rejected. And not only did he reject his rejection, he tried to vandalize democracy. That said, he has a brand of populism that's very familiar. I've said it many, many times. He plays an old book. It's an old saw. And it's one of grievance. It's one of weaponizing those grievances and differences, demeaning minorities and vulnerable communities. It's not my brand of politics, nor do I think it's the majority of Americans' brand.
But do you think he can win?
Absolutely. He won the last election, so that's a proof point. So I
he
know
won
he
the 2016 election.
Which,
not the 2020 election.
Well, he lost the 2020, and he won
he
the
says
16.
He won that election.
Exactly. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to make sure there's no
Well, we just made some real news there.
But the fact that he won the first time is all the evidence you need. And I say that soberly because I want to be in denial. I want to sort of play to the base saying, don't worry, oh my God, he can never win. He won, and people were talking like that then in 16. So let's disabuse ourselves that this guy's not a real threat. Here's the difference. He's not just a real threat to get back the wilds. He's a real threat to our way of life, to democracy as we know it. I mean, it's a serious and consequential moment, and it requires clarity and moral fortitude. And that's why it's so important we stop the hand-wringing and the navel-gazing and get on Team Biden and get moving as a party in the same direction, regardless of any headwinds in terms of public perception. And let's close that gap on the basis of performance.
Well, but the perception, though, is real. And you see all these polls. These are Democrats that like Joe Biden, that don't like Donald Trump, that are concerned about his age, and that don't like the idea of an 86-year-old president at the end of his term. Do they not have a point?
Maybe I have more of my father in me than I thought. I'm a romantic. Wisdom, capacity to deliver, not just a performance, but to deliver results. I'm for actual results. I have no interest. We did the 4 years of The Apprentice. It didn't work out for this country or the world. It's not about performance in politics. It's about actually making a difference in real people's lives. This guy has proven his capacity to do it with one of the smallest governing majorities in American history. And he's done more than any president in 2.5 years, and at least in my lifetime, in most of our lives. And again, what he was able to do with the CHIPS and Science Act, for those in California, I mean, this is happening in real time. We're about to announce a big deal with Applied Materials, billions and billions of dollars being invested in the state, more factory jobs, 800,000 more manufacturing jobs. Trump talks about this. And you actually saw 2.9 million jobs leave this country, meaning more people ended up on the unemployment line because of the Trump administration. Biden's created 13.5 million jobs. It's a masterclass of results. Not everyone's feeling it equally. I get the anxiety. And inflation's been anxiety-inducing. It's global, but no one cares about it being global. They care that the price of eggs is higher than it was 3 or 4 years ago. But it's also true, we've now closed that gap. We're seeing wages outpace now inflation. Things are turning in the right direction, and the guys on the other side, the folks on that stage, don't have a clue what to do about it. They want to roll back all these progress and increase costs for middle class. They don't have an economic plan except cut taxes, which in and of itself is inflationary.
This week we learned that it's going to happen, a debate between you and Ron DeSantis, November 30th, Fox News Channel, Sean Hannity in Georgia without a crowd, just the two of you. Why are you doing that, and what is your strategy?
Well, I don't know if that's the right question. Why is he doing it is the right question. He's running, I think, I'm not sure after tonight, but currently he's running for President of the United States.
And you think he's still going to be? You think he'll still be a candidate November 30th?
That's an open-ended question. Part of me wonders if, the fact that he took this debate, the fact that he took the bait in relation to this debate, shows that he's completely unqualified to be president of the United States. That's my humble first.
Why is that? You're baiting him with the debate offer?
Of course. I mean, why is he debating a guy who's not even running for president when he's running for president? He's showing up at the Reagan Library, hallowed ground, and he puts out an ad today, not for his presidential campaign, to promote a debate against the governor of California. I mean, this guy's distracted. So I don't know that he has it in his heart. I think, here's my personal opinion about Ron DeSantis, he regrets running for president. He made a huge mistake. He listened to his consultants. He bought his own hype. He had this little God complex. I mean, look at the ads themselves. Literally, God created. I mean, he bought into all this stuff. And he quickly regretted it, but he's stuck. And here's the problem. He got one chance of first impression. He's belly flopped. He's down 30-plus points from where he started. So it's a terrible situation for him. And so he's desperate for attention, and he's trying to get it from the governor of California. What I'm going to give him is the ability to make his case, but we will be making our case for blue state America anew, and I hope he's prepared for that.
Up next, the governor weighs in on Robert F. Kennedy's race for president and the battle he lost to his kids this week.
Your kids are now old enough, or some of them are old enough, to sort of get what's going on when it comes to this election.
Well, by the way, full disclosure, one was old enough just to get a cell phone. Forgive me, but 14, I think it's still too young, but I fight.
So they got, because when we talked to your wife, she said none of your kids had a cell phone.
Do your kids have flip phones or?
No, they don't have any.
They don't have any, really?
So I personally went to the mall and bought her a pink cell phone 2 days ago. I regret it already, 48 hours later. Like actually, real life, regret it.
Why the decision to do that?
I couldn't take it. They win. They just every day. Every one of my friends has it. Dad, I can't talk. It's just, she wins. With a lot of restrictions, we have a contract we signed. I think she's already broken it like 5 times.
What's in the contract?
I don't know. I think there should be some civil penalties. So I need to, I don't know what to do at this stage. But already it's tough. Anyway, forgive me.
That's an interesting aside. But speaking of just the stakes for this election, how do you talk about this election with your kids? Because I know a lot of their friends are Republicans and Republican parents and things like that too.
Think about what kids care about most. They care about going to school and not worrying about being shot, because they're doing drills about the prospect of a shooter coming into their schools. I mean, I had one of my kids talk about, Dad, can you get one of those bulletproof backpacks? How's that even possible? Climate change, existential for these kids. They're inheriting a world. This is, I mean, Bobby Kennedy Jr. said it beautifully. He says, these guys are in the business of the planet in liquidation. I mean, this is their inheritance, that we are destroying this planet. Think about the issues that are not being addressed on the debate stage tonight. Those are the issues that kids care about most. And democracy, I'm a little old-fashioned, I also think matters to these kids. To have more voice and choice, not authoritarianism, and the right and freedoms that, frankly, I took for granted the last 50 years, particularly for my daughters, right? Not just to access to reproductive care, but also to contraception. And you'll see Nikki Haley tonight, who said women don't care about contraception. This is a very consequential moment for our kids.
And since you brought the name up, Bobby Kennedy Jr., our Bobby Kennedy, who is your hero, your dad was close with him, you revere him, you've studied him, his son is running for president, we talked to him recently. What do you make of that, and what do you think he would make of that?
Well, I think no one was better 10, 15 years ago on the environment. Bobby Kennedy set the bar, Jr. that is, next level in terms of being able to speak in spiritual terms about the environment that brought people from all walks of life. I love that guy. Things have changed. He's a true believer. I respect that and just have different points of view. I don't want to talk down to someone or past someone, but on the spectrum, there are a lot of issues where I just think he's gone a little too far, and I just don't align with that, and that's hard because, I'm a romantic. I'm a kid of the 60s, late 60s, but the vernacular of the 60s, solving ignorance and poverty and disease, Sar Shriver, Bobby Kennedy, hard-headed pragmatism, the right values. So he can lay claim to a lot of that. I wish that's what this campaign was about, not the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories.
And when we talked to him, we asked if it's Trump versus Biden. He said he was sort of undecided on where he's going to go.
Enough said there.
Yeah.
That's, to me, disqualifying that as a candidate for a Democratic Party. Bobby should know better than that. That's an easy choice.
So for you, though, and we can wrap up on this, how does the world look different if Donald Trump wins the presidency again versus another term of Biden-Harris?
I don't want to say we're a remarkably resilient country, but he tested us to the extreme. And we were on the front end of that. We had 70, speaking of the environment, 70 lawsuits against Trump, 7-0. He tried to destroy Ronald Reagan's hard-fought waiver on tailpipe emissions. He tried to vandalize all our progress across the board. This is a full-on code red moment in American history, world history. I talked to world leaders. I was just at the United Nations last week. Not one of them came up to me without going, do you think this guy can win? That's how panicked the world is in relationship to this choice. And that's why, for me, we don't have a choice. We don't have time to discuss polls, who's up, who's down, how old or young someone is, how this. It's time all of us get on the Biden train, get focused, get serious. This is a fundamental question. Someone who believes in democracy and someone that believes in someone who fundamentally does not believe in the principles of our founding fathers. And I think it's just that stark of a contrast.
Governor Gavin Newsom, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's a more sober way to end than usual, but it's a sober moment.
For extended conversations with all of our newsmakers, stream the Issue Is podcast every week. We'll be right back. As we wrap things up at the California Republican Convention, you see lots of energy for former President Trump. Next week on The Issue Is a very different perspective. Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi will be with us in studio. Thanks for watching this very special edition of The Issue Is. Here's a look at the folks who made this show possible.
Your favorite ice cream?
I like anything in here. I like this guy.